Timothy's mother checked him out of his kindergarten class on May 11, 2011. She bought him new toys and clothes, took him on a 3-day trip to different water parks, until she finally committed suicide in a motel room. But where's Timothy? Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing a missing persons case that to this day remains unsolved. First, I'll fill you in on all of the facts that the public currently knows, and then we'll discuss and speculate. On May 11, 2011, Timothy was dropped off at Greenman Elementary School by his father, James Pitzen. Shortly afterwards, he was taken out of class by his mother, Amy Pitzen, who cited a family emergency as her reason, which was a lie. Around 10 a.m., Amy dropped her 2004 Ford Expedition SUV at an auto repair shop. An employee of the repair shop drove Amy and Timothy to Brookfield Zoo until they returned at 3 p.m. Amy picked up her car and drove with Timothy to the Key Lime Cove Resort in Gurnee, Illinois, about an hour to an hour and a half away from Aurora, where they lived. When James went to pick Timothy up from school and was subsequently informed his child was not there, he was concerned but not alarmed. Their marriage was apparently rocky, and this was not the first time Amy had run off. It was, however, the first time she had run off with Timothy. He felt certain Amy would return, but one day later, when neither had turned up, he called authorities and reported them both missing. He also repeatedly tried to call Amy, but she never answered. Meanwhile, Amy and Timothy spent the night at the Key Lime Cove Resort, and on May 12th, the next morning, Amy took Timothy to Kalahari Resort in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. They spent the day there and were both seen on camera checking out from the resort at 10 a.m. May 13th. At 1:30 p.m. that same day, Amy made cell phone calls to her loved ones saying that she and her son were safe and not in trouble. In the background of one of the phone calls, Timothy could be heard saying that he was hungry. But that was the last time anyone in his family would hear his voice. At 7:25 p.m., Amy was sighted at a Family Dollar store in Winnebago, Illinois, where she purchased stationery. This time, she was completely alone. She went to the nearby Sullivan's Foods at 8 p.m. to purchase Ritz crackers and milk, then checked into room 108 at the Rockford Inn in Rockford, Illinois between 11:15 and 11:30 p.m., still without Timothy. Sometime that night or the next morning, she took her own life by slashing both her wrists long ways and her neck. She had also taken an overdose of antihistamines. The inn's employees found her body at 12:30 p.m. the next day, May 14th. The motel room had no evidence that Timothy had ever been there. Amy left a 5-sentence suicide note and 2 letters in the mail, one to her mother and one to a friend, saying Timothy was fine and with people who cared about him, but she wouldn't say who she left him with. One of her notes said no one would ever find him. Upon investigation, there were several items missing. Timothy's Spider-Man backpack he was wearing on security footage, his toys and clothes that she had bought him along the trip, the clothes that Amy was wearing when she checked out of the Kalahari Resort, a tube of Kids Crest toothpaste, and an iPass transponder. With the information the public is given, it's hard to imagine why Amy would do such a thing to herself or her son. What was her motivation to end her own life? Why would she give her son to strangers rather than leave him with family? Regardless, there's only 2 likely ways this truly ended. There's the possibility that she really did murder her own son. The last few days spent together was meant to give him a great time before she ended his short life. In the motel room her body was found, there was a bottle of children's cold medicine, which she could have used as a means to lure him to sleep before taking his life. There is a 6-hour gap between the phone call Amy made where Timothy is heard in the background and Amy being seen at the Family Dollar in Winnebago. That's plenty of time to carry out a nefarious plan and lay her child to rest, which is further supported by the fact that investigators found weeds and dirt in the undercarriage of her SUV, evidence that she drove somewhere, like woods or an open field, to bury her son. Additionally, the items missing could be buried with him, and the safe place he's meant to be could be heaven. However, Amy's family swear to this day that Amy would never have hurt her son. They say that while she did suffer from depression, Timothy was the light of her life, and they believe he has people taking care of him and is very much alive. That would also explain where his possessions could be. A credit card showed that while on this trip, she bought him new clothes and toys. It would make sense to send him with those items, as well as kids' toothpaste, to live in a new home. The last few days spent together were meant to be memorable and fun before she left him forever. But if she loved him so much and was so incapable of putting him in harm's way, why not leave him with family? Amy's mother reported that Timothy would spend every other weekend at her house, so there are family members that had the ability and absolute desire to care for him. But in the event of her death, Timothy would stay with his father. This must be what Amy was trying to prevent, but why? We only vaguely know that their marriage was rocky. We don't know any details or to what extent. And while on their road trip, Amy never once called her husband, even to reassure him that they were okay, like she did with other family members. And furthermore, if she wouldn't leave him with family, then who? Data from her iPass shows that she had 2 prior secret trips to the Dixon, Rock Falls, Sterling area on February 18th and March 20th. Her family says that she has no connections in those areas. Was she coordinating a plan with someone, or was she plotting a secluded place for Timothy to rest? Lastly, if someone does have Timmothy Pitzen, they're likely unwilling to come forward for 2 reasons. Either because they truly believe, for whatever reason, Timothy should not be with his family, or out of fear for the consequences of hiding him away. On April 3, 2019, 8 years after Timothy's disappearance, the family had a resurgence of hope. A man approached a police officer in Newport and said, "Can you help me? I just want to get home. Please help me." He claimed to have been kidnapped, held captive in a hotel room, repeatedly sexually assaulted, and that his name was Timmothy Pitzen. He did not allow investigators to take his fingerprints, but he did allow a DNA swab. The DNA test came back proving he was not at all Timmothy Pitzen. His real identity is Brian Reaney. Brian Reaney is a 23-year-old man from Medina, Ohio. His brother described him as being in and out of jail for small things, but he would constantly violate his probation. And this isn't the first time that he's posed as a trafficking victim. In fact, he has committed this crime twice before. He had just been released from prison March 7th, where he had served 14 months for burglary and vandalism. He told investigators that he had heard of Timothy and his case from the television show 2020. As of January 7th, just yesterday at the time of recording, it has been confirmed that Reaney will plead guilty to aggravated identity theft and will serve up to 8 years in prison. Today, Timothy would be 15 years old. He would be a freshman in high school, forming his first crushes, experiencing the crippling embarrassment of acne, and maybe playing a sport or 2. His family desperately misses him and have had their hearts ripped into so many directions. Anger at Amy for leaving Timothy somewhere, sadness at her death, and hope that was destroyed at the hands of a criminal. At this point, they will likely never know what kind of person he'd grow up to be, his interests, or his tastes, all because of a situation so confusing with so few real answers. Here's an age progression sketch of what Timothy would have looked like a couple years ago. If you happen to recognize him, please be sure to call the Aurora Police Department. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.